As a language coach, my job is to help you learn languages. A little while ago, my friend came to me with her struggles with learning Tagalog, Filipino. And a lot of the problems that she has are the same problems that you have. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I told my friend because I know you can benefit from it too. Let's call my friend May. May is a busy Filipino-American mom of little kids and she wants to learn Tagalog. And she's first generation Filipino-American, which means she grew up around Tagalog, but nobody ever actually taught her to speak it. So May is a heritage learner, which means she has receptive bilingualism. That basically means you can understand the language really well, but you can't express yourself. You can't have a conversation. Because she understands so well, she kind of just assumed that it would be just as easy to learn to speak. Unfortunately, she's learned that it's not that simple. Whenever she tries to open her mouth and speak Tagalog, she gets really frustrated because she feels like it should be so much easier because she understands it. Why can't she speak it? Now, when May shared this with me, I told her that this is totally common and happens all the time with heritage learners. It makes total sense to think that if you understand the language, then it should be really easy to speak it. And when it's not that easy to speak it, it gets really personal. Heritage language learners tend to have a lot of trauma involved with their language learning. So when they feel like they can't speak as well as they should, it starts a whole cycle of self-sabotage and feeling really bad about yourself and feeling disappointed in yourself and being afraid to share that, especially with your family. Because even though it's not actually your fault that you didn't grow up speaking the language, you feel like you should, especially because a lot of your family members probably make fun of you for not being able to speak the language. So with this problem, the first thing that I told May was that language learning is not just one skill. It's a whole bunch of different skills. And they all work together, but they're also really independent, which is why I teach my clients how to focus their attention on the specific language skills that are important to them. So while it seems obvious that if she understands Tagalog, she should be able to speak it fairly easily, it makes total sense that she was disappointed when she couldn't at all. And even if you're not a heritage language learner yourself, it is super common to understand the language a lot better than you can speak it, or vice versa. Because language learning is a combination of all these different skills: reading, writing, listening, speaking, vocabulary, grammar, all of these different things, pronunciation. And unfortunately, our skills tend to change, like our levels. So even if you can understand everything, that means absolutely nothing about your ability to converse. So I told May to not take this personally, that this is totally normal and there's nothing wrong with her or her abilities. She's learned now that it's not as easy as she hoped it would be, and that's okay. She needs to not feel so guilty about it. The first thing that she needs to do is to take a step back, take a deep breath, and now that she can change her expectations, she's going to be a lot better with learning Tagalog. The next problem that May had was with her language teacher. So she's meeting with a Tagalog teacher once a week who is teaching her Tagalog online. There's a couple of problems here. The first problem is that her teacher is teaching her formal language. So like she's gonna write essays in college or something. She's teaching her really complicated grammar and really formal ways of speaking and not conversational ways of speaking. Problem is, May wants to be conversational. She wants to be able to have conversations with her family and with other Tagalog relatives and people around her, and other Filipinos. But even though she's not learning what she wants to learn, she's listening to her teacher because her teacher is the professional, right? So when May shared that with me, I told her to communicate to her teacher. And I asked her if her teacher created a space where she felt comfortable speaking up and saying, hey, this isn't what I want to learn. I want to learn something else. Because not every teacher is receptive to that. Fortunately, May does feel comfortable sharing this with her teacher, and hopefully that will help. But there's another problem. The other issue that she has is guilt. She feels like she should be spending more time learning Tagalog. At most, she's able to meet with her teacher once a week, but she skips a lot of weeks because she's busy. She knows that the more time you spend on your language learning, the faster you'll learn. And so she feels like if she were able to spend more than maybe once a week on her Tagalog, she wouldn't have any issues with her teacher. Basically, she's assuming that the problem is with herself and her lack of schedule and her lack of consistency. At this point, I told May that she's busy. She has a really busy schedule. She's just as busy as so many of us who really do not have the time to focus hours and hours and hours every week on our language learning. And that might make us a little bit slower, but that's not a bad thing. May was expressing a lot of guilt that she can't even make it once a week to her teacher, and believes that if she could make it more than once a week, or at least once a week consistently every week, then maybe all the problems she has with her teacher wouldn't exist anymore. I told her that's not true. We have to work with what we've got in our routine. And if we don't have as much as we would like, it's our job to not feel guilty about that. We're all busy people and you can't find time in your schedule to spend more time, and that's totally fine. Think of it this way. If you were to spend 40 hours a week learning a language using a strategy that doesn't work for you, would the problems go away or would they just be more extreme? The next issue that May had is with her resources. Tagalog isn't a particularly popular target language, and so it presents a problem where there aren't the resources available to her. So she has access to the paid version of Duolingo and she wants to use Duolingo for Tagalog, but it doesn't exist. Duolingo doesn't support Tagalog. So for right now, she's thinking about using Duolingo for Spanish because she has it, and Spanish and Tagalog are really related and it can't hurt, right? Except she didn't say that. She actually feels really guilty that she should be spending time with Tagalog and not get distracted by Spanish. And so she's just not learning anything at all. Actually, she started the conversation by asking me if I think that Duolingo will ever support Tagalog. And I told her, no, and even if they did, it wouldn't really support that much. It would be like a really small, tiny little course that you could do in like a couple of months. It definitely wouldn't be as extensive as Spanish is. But on top of all of the guilt that I've already mentioned so far in this video, she also feels guilty that she should be learning Spanish, but she should also be learning Tagalog. And so she doesn't learn anything. She asked me my opinion and I told May that she should just learn a language. And even if it doesn't look exactly like she expected it to, and it's not as easy to find resources as she wants it to be, I told May to just learn something, especially because Spanish and Tagalog are so related. Anything that you learn in Spanish can really help with your Tagalog. So even if you're not directly learning Tagalog now, you're still picking up patterns and vocabulary and history and things like that. I always say that I would rather you learn something in a different language, even if it's not what you want to learn or it's not the language that you should be learning. Just learn some language because all languages are connected and you never know what little tidbit you're going to pick up that will help you later. Now, May's last complaint is my favorite. So like I said, she wants to be able to have conversations in Tagalog, right? She wants to be conversationally fluent, confident. Problem is she doesn't feel ready to start speaking. When I asked her why, she said a couple of different reasons. The first reason being that her teacher says she's not ready. I told her that's dumb. You're never ready to speak. You're never ready to do anything. You just do it. Not only does her teacher tell her that she's not ready, but whenever she runs into problems with verb conjugations or vocabulary that she can't really pick up, she feels like that's a sign that she needs to improve those things before she tries speaking. And this is where you can see the connections because her teacher is teaching her verb conjugations, vocabulary, formal language, and telling her that she's not ready to speak. And so May, whenever she tries to speak, she can't conjugate verbs or come up with vocabulary, and so she thinks that she needs to memorize that vocabulary and practice conjugations first. But she doesn't actually want to learn those things. She wants to speak. So I told May that there's no such thing as being ready. If you want to get better at speaking, you need to practice speaking, and it's gonna suck at first. It's gonna suck for a little while, and then eventually you'll get better at it. But I told May that if she works on her verb conjugations, she will get better at verb conjugations. But like I said, that's a different skill than being able to conjugate verbs in a conversation. After May told me all of her problems with her language learning and her teacher and access to resources and confidence and guilt, my one giant piece of advice that I share with her is to start speaking. Talk to yourself. Repeat things that you find online. Just get used to speaking words. Because unless you practice conjugating verbs while you're speaking, you're not going to be able to conjugate verbs when you speak. And also, I really hate that she's paying a teacher who told her that she's not ready to speak when that is her goal. That's what she wants to do. But it was a good reminder for me that a lot of people have really bad advice. And unfortunately, they're the professionals that most language learners listen to, and creates obstacles stopping them from learning what they want to learn in languages. So that's the advice that I had to share with May. We'll see how it goes. I really hope the best for her, and I'm gonna send this video to her, so we shall see. Let me know if you can relate to any of May's problems in the comment section below. I'd love her to see that she's not alone in her language learning because none of us are actually alone. Every single one of the problems that May shared with me are problems that my clients share with me every day. So I'm sure you can relate to something. That's all I have for this video. If you found it valuable, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new one every Wednesday, all about language learning. And if you resonated with the advice that I shared in this video, my next tip is to go to the link below in the description and take the free quiz. Just like I shared personalized advice with my friend May, that quiz will give you personalized advice based on your responses to the quiz questions. See you there.